morning, good people. Jason here with Green Country Agriforestry. Coming at you from the garden. Another beautiful day. I think today is the day that I'm going to share with you a little story called The Gardener's Son. And it's kind of a parable for the 7-step program for the restoration of the earth. There once was a young man from a town nearby who set out to become a gardener. He left the home of his mother and his father and went out to find a field that had never been worked before. He measured it, established a boundary, small stones that he picked up from the field. Then he went around and gathered up more stones, large boulders, and eventually pulled out all the large rocks and used them to reinforce the boundary wall around the field. Then he dug a well, made ponds and sealed them, made channels for the water to go throughout the property. Then he went out into the wilderness looking for the best of the nut trees and the fruit trees. He took cuttings from the vines that produced good fruit, good grapes. He found bushes and shrubs that made berries or were good for medicine. He brought them all back and planted them inside his garden. Then he took seeds for all kinds of ground covers, herbaceous perennials. Planted those in the spaces where weeds would grow. Over time, he became quite successful. Took the surplus into town to sell and made a decent living. Eventually, he built a small home, married a woman from a good family, and as you would imagine, they had children of their own. Whenever their son was old enough to walk and talk and know right from wrong, came to his father and said, "Dad, I want to become a gardener just like you." And the gardener was overjoyed. He said, "Absolutely, son. We're going to take you out there tomorrow and I'll show you exactly how to be a gardener." And so, very next day, the gardener's son went out to a field that had never been worked. And the gardener gathered stones from the field and measured and marked a boundary with stones. And then he went and gave his son a bucket and said, "Well, ordinarily I would be digging a well or cutting a channel or sealing a pond or something of that nature. But this is a test garden for you to practice in. So you're just going to have to take the bucket to the well and make sure that you water with the bucket from the well whenever you water regularly every day. Make sure everything has a share of water. That's your responsibility." And so I said, "Okay, I think I understand that." And then the gardener went and he took seedlings from the orchard and he took cuttings from the best vines and planted those inside the little boundary. And then in the spaces where weeds would grow, he planted all kinds of herbaceous perennials, ground covers, and things of that nature. When he was done, he said, "Okay, son, this is your garden now. All you have to do is tend it and take care of it, make sure everything gets its portion of water, make sure the weeds don't grow up and choke out everything, and of course make sure to harvest the fruits whenever they become ripe." So from that day on, every day, the gardener's son went out. As time went on, the gardener's wife noticed that her son was not going out to his garden so much anymore. So she took her husband to the side and said, "Hey, have you noticed? Our son isn't going out to spend time in the garden quite as much as he used to. Do you suppose something could be wrong?" So the gardener came to his son and said, "Son, your mother tells me that you haven't been going out to the garden so much. What's going on?" And the gardener's son tells his dad, "Well, Dad, I don't think gardening's for me." The gardener says, "Okay, why would you say that?" The gardener's son said, "It's just too hard. It's just too hard. The birds eat all the fruit. The squirrels eat all the nuts. The hogs chase you out of the garden. I can't water everything. The weeds choke out everything. I can't keep up with all the weeds." And the gardener was a little taken aback for a moment. "Okay, we don't really have these problems. I'm not sure I understand why you're having them. You spend every day going out to your garden. And these shouldn't be problems that you're having. Let's have a look and see what's going on with the garden." So they go out to take a look at the little garden plot. And immediately, the gardener can see that the small boundary of stones is just exactly as it was, just a line of stones. There haven't been any more stones taken out of the plot. It's just that basic line of stones, and they've been overgrown, so you can't even see where the boundary is anymore. And of course, the weeds have grown up and choked out everything. Some of them more sensitive plants, without routine watering, have died. And the gardener says, "Okay, what happened?" The gardener son said, "Well, I started out doing what you told me to do, Dad. I went out there, made sure everything got watered, was pulling the weeds. But I looked and I saw that there's this peach tree just right over there on the other side of the wall. And it was making really nice peaches. So I thought, I can take care of that peach tree too. It's just right there." And then I found a walnut and a pecan. There were some cherries and mulberries, blackberry bushes, all over the place out there, all over the place. There's all kinds of good trees and bushes that not close together, but they're close enough that you can walk to them. So I just put paths between them. And I figured, these are already established. We'll just make sure that, they don't get choked out by weeds, make sure that they get water as much as I could. And so I was doing that for a while. But then, of course, the squirrels came along. They ate most of the nuts. The birds ate the cherries, the mulberries. The squirrels ate some of those too. The hogs came in, and they were foraging, and they'd get nuts, as soon as they hit the ground. It's either squirrels or hogs or deer. I forgot about the deer. And I couldn't keep up with the pests. Not only that, but whenever I pulled up weeds, more weeds came up, so I spent most of my time pulling weeds and didn't have enough time to take care of really much of anything else. The gardener said, "Okay, son, I probably didn't explain everything properly whenever I showed you, but if you'll give me a chance, I'd like to show you again, and maybe we can give gardening another chance." So they went back out into the garden plot, and the gardener said to his son, "Okay, now the reason I measured, before we got started, the reason I measured this plot was because I've been doing this for a while, and I know that there's an amount of work that I can get done in the course of a day. But I'm a full-grown man, you're still growing, so I measured out enough for you to take care of in a day's worth of work for you. And I measured it out and marked it with these stones, the boundary around it, so you'd know where to keep your attention. The purpose of the boundary is primarily so that you remain focused on your garden and not the wilderness. Now, while you're focused on the garden, you can focus on extracting more of those rocks, which is what I did, to reinforce your garden wall. And whenever you reinforce the garden wall, you can help keep the wilderness out of your garden. So not only does this help keep your focus in the garden, but it helps keep the wilderness out of your garden. When you lost track of where the boundary was and began trying to tend the wilderness, you quickly discovered that that was actually impossible. So, whenever you return to gardening in the future, remember to reinforce your boundary and keep your attention there. The other thing that wound up being a stumbling block for you was the weeds. And yes, that can be a serious problem. What I want you to notice is, whenever I pulled the weeds in the first place, I replaced them with ground covers. You're going to have to do the same. Whenever you pull weeds, make sure you replace them with something that you want to grow. Otherwise, more weeds are just going to pop up, and you'll spend your entire time pulling weeds, and you'll never have a garden. So the gardener's son thought about it for a moment, said, "Okay, Dad, I think I understand. Is there anything else that I need to know?" And the gardener thought about it for a moment and said, "Well, after you've mastered replacing weeds with beneficial species and establishing and reinforcing your boundaries, the next thing to work on would be building a home and perhaps finding a wife. But I think those are lessons that can wait for another day when you're a little bit older." And that is all I have for you today, good people. If you found today's video informative or entertaining, you know what to do. I'll catch you next time. Until then, get out there and get grown.